Hi all, this is Mrs. Smith. This is your video for lesson 4.3 in the math book. It starts on page 58. It would have been, no, just 58. There's nothing beforehand to read. So this is all about finding a strategy you can use to figure out the percent when the denominator isn't always 100. You saw us do some of that in the last one when we had a denominator of 50, a denominator of 10, denominator of 20, and we just made them be 100 because that's really easy to figure out the percent. So we're going to do the problem set on the bottom, 4.3, and so it says the first one is suppose 80 out of 400, no, 400, 80 out of 400 cat owners surveyed said that their cats had bad breath. I got two dogs, they both have bad breath. What percent of the cat owners is this? Is the percent greater than, equal to, or less than the percent represented by 80 out of 200? Okay, so we would have 80 out of 200 and 80 out of 400. With the numerator being the same, I'm thinking 80 out of 200 is the bigger percent because the numerator is the same, but the denominator is smaller. But let's see. Can we make either of these? Can we make the 400 into 100? Well, yeah, right? We can divide by 4. And what we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So now we can have 400 divided by 4 is 100, and 80 divided by 4 is 20. I think most of you could do that in your head. So now we have 20 out of 100, which equals 0.20, which equals 20%. Okay? So now we go back because it says which one would be greater percent. So let's do the 80 out of 200. Well, can we make the 200 into 100? Yes. We just have to divide by 2. Now we're only dividing this one by 2. Right? Numerator and denominator, you do the same thing to them and you have an equivalent fraction. So 200 divided by 2 is 100. 80 divided by 2 is 40. So we can see right away that this is 0.40, which equals, I'm going to write it down here, 40%. So yes, 80 out of 200 is a better percent than 80 out of 400. And that's because when we simplified it, 40% is bigger than 20%. And I said at the beginning that I thought that was going to be the case because the numerator is the same, but the denominator is smaller. So 80 bigger chunks is better than 80 smaller chunks, right? We've talked about that before in class. All right, I'm going to erase, but you guys can be pausing and rereading these, re-listening. The next one is 120 out of 300 seventh graders surveyed said mathematics is their favorite subject. How would you express this as a fraction? Write this fraction as a decimal and as a percent. Okay, well, there it is as a fraction. Now, we want it to write it as a decimal, and to do it as a decimal, if we just get this 300 to be 100, that will give us an easy way to make it into a decimal. So let's divide it by 3 and divide the numerator by 3. So 300 divided by 3 is 100. 120 divided by 3 is 40. You can be doing the math on your paper over in the edges, right? 120 divided by 3, 3 goes into 12 4 times. It won't go into 0 at all, so we have a 0. We know it wouldn't be 4%. That would be way too little. Okay, so 40 over 100. Okay, we have to write it as a decimal. So 0.40. And then we write it as a percent. I'm going to write my percents underneath. 40%. There you go. All right, so it's really easy if you just make them into hundreds. Of course, there's going to be one coming up where we can't do that. So that was A and B. Let's do C. C is 30 out of 50 adults surveyed said they enjoy their jobs. How would you express this as a fraction? There's our fraction. As a decimal and as a percent. Well, let's get this to be 100 in the denominator, and we can multiply that by 2, right? And then now we have 100 on the bottom, 60 on the top, right? The decimal is 0.60, because yesterday we should know these, because a couple days ago I sent you the thing, and 1/10 was one of our benchmarks, and that's 0.10, and so 6 times that, 0.60. All right, and then the percent is 60%. So I would have that benchmark thing out while you're working on these, because it will be really helpful. So fraction, we rewrote the fraction, we made it into a decimal, and then we made the percent. There you go. Now let's do D. Of course, this one's going to be messier. We have 34 out of 125. Lovely, right? So we can't make it into 100. It's 125. We can't subtract. That doesn't work. They do not really have a nice common denominator, because the common factors, because 34's factors are 1 and 34, 2 and 17, and that's it. And 125 can't be divided by anything except for the 1, and so that doesn't help us. Could we make this into a number that would help us? Well, if we double it and double this one, we get 250, right? 125 times 2. 10, 5, 2, 250. Now we want to double 34, so 34 times 2, I know a lot of you can do this in your head, some may not, is 68. Okay, 250 really doesn't help us, but what if we made it to, if we doubled it again? Times 2, times 2. Now what's our bottom? Our bottom would be 500, not 1500, don't know why I wrote that. 568 times 2 is 16, 136. 136. Okay. So that gets us to 500. I thought maybe that would help us then if we divide it by 5, but I see that this is not going to divide by 5. But we can still do it, and we'll end up with a percent. So divide by 5, we get 100. Divide this by 5, well, let's do it. 136 divided by 5. 5 goes into 13 2 times. Bring down the 6. 5 goes into 36 7 times. Sorry. We have a 1. We're going to put a decimal point. 10 is going to go into that 5 times, right? So 27.5 over 100. No, we don't like those, not when we have a decimal point, but that's okay. We can still make it into a, multiply it by 100, we can still make it into a 275, into a decimal, and then the percent is 27.5%. Does that seem right? Is 34 about a fourth of 125? Because that's what we're saying. 34 times 4, 16. Yeah, it's very close. It's 136. So it's close. So yeah, 27.5 is what we would get. There is another way we could have done it. I'm going to erase this, because we could have just left it 34 over 125. I cannot do this looking through the iPad. I have to look around. So then we rewrite that as 34 divided by 125. And now 125 will not go into 34. So we're going to put the decimal point. And how many times will it go into 34? Well, twice would be 250, right? 3 times would be 375. So we're going to say twice, because twice is 250. And 0 minus 0 is 0. I can't take 5 from 4. 14 minus 5 is 9. 125 won't go into 9. Good thing. 90, good thing. So now we want to know into 900. Well, let's see. 125 times 7. Let's see. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 2 is 14. Plus 3 is 17. 875. Close enough. 875. It's going to be 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 7 is 2. Right? So we need to put the 7 up here. We need to add another 0. Bring it down. 125 into 250 is 5. So see, we came up with the same thing. There's two different ways to do it. So 0.275, when we're talking percents, equals 27.5%, because we use the first two numbers and put the decimal point after them, because we're multiplying it by 100. All right, so you've got two different ways to do that. Now what you need to do, we got E and F to do. That's on another page. So let's look at E and F. So E says 5 out of 73, another mucky one for us. 5 out of 73. Middle school students said they look forward to practicing fire drills. Are they crazy? What fraction, decimal, and percent is this? Okay, well, we can't make it into 100. We can either do that long where we try to get it to, but 73 isn't going to become anything. So let's just do the division. 5 divided by 73. 5 divided by 73. So it won't go in there, so I'm going to have to put a decimal point. 73 won't go into 50, so I'm going to put another 0 up there, and another 73 will go into 500. How many times? So definitely not 10, right? We know it can't be 10. I'm thinking about 6. So let's do 73 times 6. That's 18. 42, 43. Could I add another 73 here? Let's just add one and see. Plus 73, 11, 11, no. So our answer is 6. So 6 times 73 was 438. Need to borrow. 10 minus 8 is 2. 9 minus 3 is 6. Put a 0. All right. Because we would like something else there. It's not going to be 10. It's not going to be, this is 6, this is 7. Let's say it's 8. So 73 times 8. Because this was 6 times, this was 7 times. So let's do 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 7 is 56, 57, 58. 584. Yeah, we're not going to get another 73. So minus 584. We're going to stop after this one, even if we're not going to get 0, obviously. 10 minus 4 is 6. 11 minus 8 is 3. All right, we're stopping there. So we're saying 8. So our decimal is 0.68, and our percent is 6.8%. We really don't have to put the 0 out front. We don't need the 0 here. We don't need that. Oops, you don't need that. But we had 3 digits here. We had 0, 6, and 8. And we would put the decimal point when we multiply by 100. We move this twice, 1, 2, so it can become 6.8. We don't need the 0 in front of it. So 6.8%. And then F was write an explanation for the different strategies you use to express the survey data in percent form. So all those ones we just did. All right, so we did that together, okay? You are going to have some homework, which would have been included with this video, what problems I want you to do. You can rewatch this video, and then always like the next day or maybe later that day, I got to decide what the office hours will be. There will be some office hours for you to ask me questions. Please don't ask the questions until you've tried the homework, so that you know what your questions are. Okay? Thanks. Have a good night.